Alright, this is my project of building a concrete countertop. Here my wife is putting tape along the top edge of the form so we don't get concrete on there, easier to clean later. This whole form was made with melamine, hot glued down. Here, this gun I got from Harbor Freight, it's just a spackling gun for drywall, costs like 30 bucks. Just spraying a layer of it's just concrete with no aggregate in it, just Portland cement mixed with water and then dye. Putting like basically less than 1/8 of an inch layer on there to make sure we get that outer layer nice. Stage my gun kind of clogged up a little bit and just kind of moving it around by hand, making sure we didn't have any bare spots. You let this cure for about 10 minutes and then start mixing. Note that these speeds are about double speed. I left this whole part in the video so you can get an idea of what it's like to mix a concrete in this way. The dust is flying pretty good. I found that if I reverse the drill backwards, I didn't blow up a bunch of dust and stuff everywhere, but I found that out later. Here with GFRC or fiberglass concrete, you need it a little wetter. You don't want to get it too wet because it weakens the concrete, of course, but the fiberglass will kind of draw up about 15% more water. So you make it like oatmeal. We found it's best to add a little water as you're putting the fiberglass in, so you're not putting too much water in. I could probably use a stronger drill. This thing kicks around quite a bit, but works pretty good. Part you don't see is I mix it really well, and then shortly after this it sits for about 5 minutes and it kind of gets a temporary set. The concrete gets kind of thick, and you just mix it real quick again and it loosens back up. That's from putting add mix into it. Here's a half a bottle of Quickcrete charcoal dye. Just mix that in right at the end. Here we go, putting fiberglass in. This is a 60-pound bag of concrete, and we're using about 3 pounds of fiberglass. I kind of go with 2.5 to 3. It just depending on how thick I want it. Sometimes 3 is it's a bit granulated, almost dry. Yeah, just a little bit at a time. Wife added a little more water. It just seemed to be really drawing it up. You kind of want a dry mix here. Really, it's not going to be poured in. It's going to be hand packed in, so it doesn't need to flow or anything. There is a limit. You can only mix for 2 minutes if you keep mixing. That fiberglass will just turn into a big ball. Also, don't forget to scrape the sides, and I scrape the bottom too. And here we go. At 10 minutes after the first layer, it doesn't look dry, but it starts to set up a little bit. Here we're just packing it into the corners to make sure we get some good. Don't get any big air bubbles in there right in the corners. Later, I don't think this is as necessary because when we roll it out, it really packs it down. And this stage, just getting the concrete in there, getting a layer. We're shooting for a 1/2 inch thick at this point, and that's because there's a fiberglass screen layer that goes in there, right in the middle of our layer of concrete. This is going to be about 1 inch thick concrete, but it's going to look 2 inches because of the sides, and you'll see that later. Stage is trying to get enough concrete in the form. Pretty much used up the whole bucket we mixed. Here you'll see us rolling. This is a special spiked roller. It's just plastic. I tried vibrating the concrete and found that with GFRC, the fiberglass concrete, it the air bubbles get trapped. This really does a good job of working air bubbles out. Kind of brings the cream to the surface, much like troweling does. It does a really good job of packing it down real good. We're patting with our hands, it brings the cream up too. My wife Sasha, she's packing it into the corners, trying to kind of bring up the cream in the corners, make sure it gets a good contact with that sprayed layer. Did lots of patting. It really brings it together. That helped a lot. Rolling, patting, put more in. I think at this stage we had to mix. After this, mix another bucket. Here we're putting the screen down. This is because this is going to be a breakfast nook on the edge of our island. This part of the counter will stick out about 6 inches, so this just adds more tensile strength to the concrete. I don't know if it's really necessary. It has metal brackets, but I think this cost me $10 to put this in, and so it just doesn't hurt to have a little extra strength. Then just continued on, putting the next ½ inch thick layer to get a total of 1 inch. You can see this is really easy process. The first time we tripped, we were in a big hurry. You really have lots of time. It's pretty easy going. Just more packing it in and rolling it. Pretty much roll it as much as we can. My son came in, wanted to help a little bit. Son and the dog. I asked him to help, but he didn't get his gloves on fast enough. I think he helped us try to vibrate the table a little bit later. Stayed just trying to get it real close. I think this was when we mixed another bucket. I think it took a total of 2.5 buckets, or 2.5 6-pound bags of concrete. It's mixed with an admix that I buy from expressionsltd.com. You basically just mix a bag of their admix to a 60-pound bag of concrete, and it adds more strength to the fiberglass concrete. Only adds about $14 to the cost of each bag going in. And packing it in and getting a little closer. And see the screed board? This just makes sure we get exactly 1 inch. It rides on the top of the form and helps us find the low spots in the concrete. Well, we added a little too much on that side. Just moving it down. Didn't want to drag the fiberglass too much. It kind of all bonds together. Gets pretty gooey. And Sasha's rolling it. The more you roll it, the better. It just gets out the air bubbles and makes the concrete stronger. I kind of thought of this screed board right at the last minute. I'm glad I did. It was a great tool. Took the guesswork out of how much we needed. We ended up putting way too much in. Had to dig it back out. Got it nice and flat though. Here's the foam. It's 1 inch thick, just stuff from the big box store. And it just takes up space. That way we're not making a 2 inch thick slab that's going to weigh a lot. And these boards go in because the foam will try to float up as we try to put more concrete around the edges. Just screwed it to the edge of the form, holds it down, and then here we packed concrete around the edge. Left 1.5 inch edge around the sides. And on the front of the cabinet there's a good 2 inch thick edge just to make it stronger. Here's 24 hours later. I just start knocking the form loose. Lets it dry a little bit. The part you don't see is I had plastic over it during that 24 hours and removed it. helps cure the concrete. But at this point I think it needs to be dried out. It's pretty hard. Found if I pry from the bottom and lift up, it just comes loose. This whole form is held together by hot glue, just hot glued on, and so it's easy to break apart. Try not to pry against the concrete. Here I tried to pry the concrete. You have to break the seal that's between the concrete and the table to get it to move. And I put wedges in here at this point, you'll see, and I wish I hadn't. I actually chipped the edge of the concrete, and it's that it needs another 24 hours to be fully cure enough to do something like this. It was no big deal. It was just a little chip I patched up. But I found that if you lift the melamine up off the tabletop, it bends the melamine and it makes an air gap and pops it loose. I think that's ultimately what I did. I was trying to move it, but it's a suctioned on there. And I was trying to pull the wedge back out, but I noticed it was kind of a bad situation. It was pulling it loose. See, I broke a little chip. A little bit of a bummer, but in the end, when it was done, you can't even really, I mean, you see it, but it's not too bad. Next video, I'll show you sanding it down and patching that chip and installing it.